Over the last 2.5 years, I've built my personal brand to the point where I can now go full-time on YouTube while digital nomading around Southeast Asia. But honestly, none of that would have happened if I didn't learn how to stop overthinking and just talk to the damn camera. Specifically, I'm gonna walk through exactly how I sort of tricked myself into feeling more confident in front of the camera, the anti-script method that I use to sound more natural, and finally, what really helped me to just stop caring about what other people think about me so that I can finally hit record. So let's dive into it. Good morning, guys. We are in Bali. I am here for a couple weeks. So I actually came here to do a visa run, since in Vietnam you only get 90 days for the tourist visa and then you gotta leave, reapply, and then come back. So yeah, I figured instead of going back home to KL and like needing to pay money for like a Airbnb and like stay there, why don't I just go and explore somewhere new and just have some fun and be in a new environment. So I decided on Bali. So Bali is pretty huge and you can create your own experience of it based on what you want and what you're looking for. For me, I really just wanted to have a lot of nature and see a lot of greenery, some mountains and volcanoes and that sort of calm, naturey vibe. And so I know that Ubud is very famous for that, and that's where I am right now for these 2 weeks. I just came out of my Airbnb, walked down for like 2 minutes. I'm at this cafe and it's literally right in the middle of a rice field. I'll show you guys. The most gorgeous view. And I'm literally the only person here, which is so nice. I have worked here a couple times during the day and it's just so quiet. You have all of this greenery around you. So calming. So right now we're just gonna have some breakfast and then we're gonna get straight into the filming. So for those of you guys who are new here, I am currently on my digital nomad journey. I've been traveling around Southeast Asia for the past 4 or 5 months. So I'm currently living in Da Nang in Vietnam at the moment, and I was there for the past 2 months. I was meant to actually fly to Sweden mid-April to go visit my sister, but then plans changed very quickly. A week before I was supposed to fly, Etihad contacted me saying that I was gonna miss my connecting flights because they rescheduled, one of the connecting flights, which would then impact the entire journey. And so they asked me if I wanted a refund, and I was like, oh, is this a sign to not go to Europe? I thought to myself, like, the situation is pretty unpredictable. I don't know if I'm gonna be stuck in Europe, even if I do manage to go there. And out of all places, like, I would much prefer to be stuck in Southeast Asia. So I figured, okay, let me stay in Vietnam for another 3 months and then see what the situation is like, maybe book another flight to Sweden. And yeah, it's just all like very up in the air right now. But I did need to leave Vietnam to go for my visa run. So since my flight ticket got canceled, within the span of just 1 week, I did everything. I booked everything for Bali, and I also went apartment hunting in Da Nang because I needed to find a place to stay for the next 3 months. And I wanted to get that sorted before leaving for Bali. So yeah, it's just been so hectic, and I'm very happy to be in Bali, and I found an apartment in Da Nang, and like now I can just explore and have that peace of mind and not worry about, oh my god, I need to find a place to stay when I come back to Vietnam. It's honestly like good problems to have for sure. I'm not complaining whatsoever, and I'm very grateful just to be able to do this. But yeah, speaking about being grateful, I have honestly had the best time in Bali so far. Your girl asked for nature and wanted more nature, and she got it. Like, Bali said, say less. What have I done so far? Honestly, like Tuesday to Friday from when I arrived last week, I was mainly working because weekdays I usually work, and then weekends is when I like have my free time. And yeah, since like going full time on my content and business, I've more or less had like a 9 to 5 schedule just to have structure and routine during my week, and I find that it works best. So yeah, Tuesday to Friday last week, I was mainly working in like cafes and stuff and kind of exploring here and there at night and checking out the gyms here. But then over the weekend, I checked out the Galalang rice terraces. Yesterday, I went to Sidaman, and it's like an hour and a half away. They say it's what Ubud was like many years ago before it became touristy and busy and stuff, like untouched Bali. And honestly, it's the most beautiful place I have ever seen, or one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my life. The valleys are gorgeous. You see these beautiful rice terraces, and you can see like the highest mountain in Bali, Mount Agung, and it's just the most like gorgeous gorgeous scenery ever. After that, I went to Gembleng Waterfall. So that's kind of like natural rock pools that are cascading. It's like multi-tier, and you can see the view of the mountains in the background and the jungle. It's gorgeous. So beautiful. My food just arrived. So I got a very traditional Indonesian breakfast of eggs Benedict, of course. This view though, it's so beautiful. So I wanted to leave the cafe because there was someone that came to the upstairs area and I didn't feel comfortable filming. Yeah, usually I'm fine if other people are around me, but honestly, because it was just the two of us upstairs in such a quiet area, it felt very weird. Also, I think it's drizzling a little bit right now. I might have to head back into my Airbnb and film there instead. Yeah, okay, I think it's definitely gonna start raining right now. I see the clouds, so we're definitely heading back in and filming there. So the first thing that really helped me is to just pretend that I'm talking to a friend. So to me, the idea of talking in front of a camera has always been super unnatural, and I'm sure you feel it too because it's not normal to be sat in your room by yourself talking to this metal box. It's kind of weird, to be honest, and I've learned that in order to get over this weirdness, I needed to sort of brainwash myself into thinking or feeling that this was normal somehow, and the way that I did that was to pretend as if I was just speaking to one friend. When I first started out on YouTube, I had it in mind that I was addressing, a ton of people, because every time someone watches your YouTube video, like you'll get maybe a few hundred views or a few thousand views, and you kind of have it in your mind that you're speaking to the masses a little bit. And then I realized that was affecting my delivery because I felt like I needed to show up as this person who was giving this presentation in front of a whole group of people or in front of an audience and giving some sort of a talk, when really the way to sound more natural and more like yourself on YouTube is to just pretend that you're speaking to one of your friends. Because when you're talking to a friend, you're not really overthinking about the most perfect words to use or the most perfect phrasing to deliver your points. You're just kind of like just yapping. It doesn't take away from the clarity of your message. Like your friend and whoever you're speaking to will understand what you're trying to say. And so we don't need to sound perfect or completely polished and use all the best vocabulary to get our point across. The other thing is that it makes your content sound way better because people do not like to be lectured at. If you come into your filming sessions thinking that you're addressing a ton of people and you deliver your points as if you're doing a TED Talk, you don't want to sound like a guru on YouTube. I don't think that style really works anymore, and to be honest, like puts a lot of people off. And by the way, if you are a small YouTuber and you want to grow faster, gain clarity around your content, attract the right audience, and also eventually turn YouTube into a sustainable income source, my Creator Accelerator program helps with exactly that. If you did want to find out more, you can check out the link in the description and apply if it feels right for you. I also recently launched a free school community. It's called YouTube Growth Lab, and every week I do live Q&As, so you can just rock up with your content questions and I can help you out with those. Or if you didn't have any questions and just wanted to show up to the calls, you can, and just come and hang out with other creators at the same stage of the journey as you. The second thing that really helped me is something I like to call the anti-script method. So for the first year and a half of my YouTube journey, I used to script my videos word for word. And then when I was filming, I would just like read one or two lines, memorize it, and then regurgitate it back to the camera, perfectly verbatim. And to be honest, that was extremely exhausting. It worked for a time, and that's why I kept doing it. But the thing is, I felt like I just needed to push through every single time, and filming always felt like such a heavy lift. Like I had never really enjoyed the filming process with YouTube. And I realized it was because I was adding a lot of friction to my workflow. I was making it a lot harder than it needs to be. And when you're doing something that you don't really enjoy, or it feels like it's kind of hard, then you won't be in like the right state of mind, you won't be in a good mood, and that will affect your delivery too. It was because I was pressuring myself to regurgitate everything back perfectly to the camera. It put a lot of pressure on me, and then that made me come across as more rigid and just like I wasn't relaxed, and it definitely showed when when I was delivering my points. So after a year and a half of doing that, I finally decided to try out a different method for my scripting. And what I've been doing since then is I will just write bare bones bullet points. I'll only write my hook word for word because, of course, the hook is the most important part of the video. But yeah, for all of my points, I will just like write a few sentences, and during filming, I'll just riff off of those points, and that's what I'm doing right now. So that honestly has helped me so much to save a bunch of time with scripting. And so I'm not spending like hours or days even just like scripting for one YouTube video. And it helps me a ton to sound more natural because then I'm not fixated or anxious about, am I memorizing the words right exactly as I have it in the script? So the way that I script would be how I think I sound like when I speak, but it's really not. And so it's kind of like hard to sync the two, if that makes sense. So it's like, okay, I think I kind of sound like this when I speak, and then I write it down. And then when I actually like regurgitate it back to the camera, it feels off or it feels unnatural. Like this is not how I would normally say that. And so yeah, I'm not a huge fan of scripting word for word, honestly. So when I say you don't need a script or, you know, the anti-script method, I don't mean having zero, like not having anything prepared whatsoever for when you film. Like maybe that might work for some people, but if you are in the educational space, then you do want to have some structure and flow to your videos. And trust me, like if you have nothing prepared and you turn on the camera, like you will just start fumbling and getting frustrated and like, oh my God, what am I saying? So what I mean by anti-script is not having things written out word for word, but rather just having your main points in the structure or order that makes sense to your viewers, because ultimately you are still teaching and structure and order is super, super important when it comes to that. And yeah, just having like the general bullet points for what you want to say. So the final thing I wanted to talk about is something that's very overlooked. And when I was first starting out my journey, I really had to learn how to get over myself. So what do I mean by that? When you're first starting out on YouTube, there's a bunch of things that you have to learn, like a bunch of technical things. And I will be the first to say that it is really, really hard. It is the hardest social media platform to grow on because the barrier to entry is so much higher. There's way more skills that you need for YouTube compared to other short form platforms like Instagram or TikTok. But the number one thing that stops people from posting on YouTube and posting consistently isn't the technical stuff. It isn't gear or scripting or editing or any of the things that you would expect. The number one thing that stops people is the mental and emotional barriers that you have to get over. It's all of these invisible blockers. And at the beginning of my YouTube journey, I really had to get over myself and get over the fear of, oh, what would people think about me if I post? Are my colleagues or distant relatives or neighbors gonna find out about my channel? And are they gonna make fun of me? I need to make my content perfect and amazing before I can even put it out there. And what if I mess up or my content is bad and people judge me for it? And over the years, I really had to brainwash myself, shifting those mindsets and to replace it with more helpful thoughts. And what I've realized along the way is that these people are not your target audience. Your neighbor or your colleagues at work, they are not the people that you are trying to help. And you not making content just to save yourself the embarrassment of being judged by those people that, you know, don't need you and don't need your help, it is a disservice to the people that do need to hear what you have to say and do need your help and would benefit a lot from you posting YouTube videos. And so I try to remember that, you know, my content is for those people, the ones that really need me, and not for these other people who I think are gonna judge me or find me cringy or whatever. The other thing that I remind myself is that I didn't go on this content journey to be liked. I wanted to start making YouTube videos because I wanted to do meaningful work that I love, to really impact other people's lives in a positive way, and to build a life of time and location and financial freedom for myself. It really helped to remind me of the bigger picture and the bigger why. I'm not here to people please or have people like me and think I'm cool or whatever. And the final thing I will say is that I used to really fear cringe a lot, or feeling cringe, especially when I was filming B-roll outside or vlogging outside. I would feel like, oh my God, are people watching me and are they judging me right now? And oh my God, I can't possibly just whip out my tripod and start filming. I'm gonna be so honest with you right now. Like I still to this day will feel super cringe when I'm filming outside, like 8 out of 10 times. Like recently in Da Nang, I would film on the beach where there are other people sunbathing around me. And there was even one time where this woman sat on the rock right next to mine whilst I was in the middle of speaking to the camera. And I wasn't speaking softly either, you know, I was like really kind of projecting my voice. And I thought to myself, like, why? Out of all places, this beach is massive. You could sit literally anywhere, but you decide to sit on the rock right next to me. Why? You know, like why would you want to be sitting next to this person who is just like yapping and making a lot of noise? Like, wouldn't you want to be somewhere a bit more peaceful? And every time I'm in these sort of situations, I remind myself, like, am I really going to stop myself from building my dream life and for putting out this valuable content just because of a feeling, like just because of cringe? You know, it's like back to what I was saying about remembering your whole why and the bigger purpose and the bigger reason for why you want to make content in the first place, and remembering how that is way more important than the short-term immediate cringe or uncomfortable feelings that you're experiencing right in this very moment. Because these feelings are temporary, but the consequences of your actions, i.e. not filming and not putting out content and not building your channel or your business, like that's gonna have massive long-term consequences for your life. And so the way that I like to think about it is like, okay, sacrificing short-term comfort for the greater good and for long-term happiness and fulfillment. Yeah, that's helped me a ton to get over the cringe. And I usually feel so proud of myself and so happy with the clips that I take, like after I do a filming session, even though like during the filming session, like the 1 or 2 hours that I am on the beach or filming outside where there are other people around me, like I'm feeling so uncomfortable and so cringe and just, you know, like not great at all. But at the end of the day, it's always worth it. So hopefully that helps you a little bit on your YouTube journey to stop overthinking and just talk to the damn camera. And if you're still overthinking about posting on YouTube because you feel like you're not special enough to post, you don't think you have anything to offer to other people, I did recently make a whole video about how normal people are blowing up on YouTube in 2026 to basically highlight how you don't need this crazy, interesting life story or this insane skill in order to be someone worth listening to on social media, and that you can absolutely build an engaged community online and to grow a successful YouTube channel, even if you are just like an ordinary, normal, or boring person even. If you're interested, you can check that out on the screen here. Okay guys, take care and see you in the next video.